Hey, Doobert, welcome back to the show. I'm really excited today to talk to Casey. So Casey Shook is out there in lovely Oregon, and I'm going to have her talk to you in a minute about what her role is and what she's doing. And one of the interesting things about Casey is not only is she an executive director, she's also an attorney. So that was an interesting fact about Casey. So Casey, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Talk to us about your role, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, so my current role, I'm the executive director of an organization in McMinnville, Oregon. It's called Homeward Pets Humane Society. We are technically Oregon's first no-kill shelter, started in 1975. And we also have a low-cost spay neuter clinic and a thrift shop. So we are doing a lot out there. Annually, our clinic is cranking out almost 4,000 surgeries. So we're a very busy little organization. I joined the team in April of 2024. And right now, a lot of what my day-to-day looks like, besides just managing all of the locations, is trying to finish out a capital campaign to raise $4.5 million for a new shelter. And currently we're doing the building project side of it. So I'm out on site a lot, chatting with contractors and making decisions about everything from flooring to the type of kennels we're going to use, paint. It's very overwhelming at times, but super exciting.
I was going to say it's like building a house on steroids, though, right? You think about when you build a house, you got to make every decision. It's the same with the shelter. You got every fixture, like you said, every color, every material. Somebody has to choose it.
Yep. And I will never have an interest in building my own house, I don't think, after this. This is
This will
plenty.
take right out of you, right?
It's super cool though. I've learned a lot about construction and also just like animal care facilities and what needs to go into them and best practices and things like that,
Yeah.
that were not on my radar at all just a year and a half ago. So I'm learning a lot too.
Yeah. It's something that's an interesting thing. Something about the role of an executive director that you wouldn't normally think, right? But this is something because of what you guys are doing that you're kind of having to dive into and figure out. Now, I thought your interesting fact was super interesting to me because you're an executive director of the Humane Society and also an attorney. So, was it always your dream to be an ED of a humane society, or where did your path begin?
Well, I think I'm a lot like many people in this field where from the start of your life, you're just kind of inherently drawn to animals. And for a long time through my teenage years and the first few years of being an adult, I was pursuing a career as a veterinarian. And I think that's just also inherently kind of where people tend to go at first because it's the most visible profession for helping animals.
Right.
Uh, I graduated high school with my associate's degree. So when I started college, I was right into the really high level sciences and maths, and I just like couldn't do it. It didn't play to my strengths. I was really overwhelmed. And so I was trying to think of alternatives that would still let me help animals, but that played more to my strengths. I ended up switching to pre-law. And around that same time, I found out that Oregon, where I'm located now, had a lot of animal law specific resources and a program specifically for that at one of their schools. So I journeyed out here. Um, Animal law is a tricky beast. There are not a ton of opportunities, and everybody's fighting for them. So, in order to kind of prepare myself for what they needed from me, I was looking for litigation experience and I got into family law right out of school.
Hmm.
I was doing other things that I'm passionate about, child custody, domestic violence. I felt like I was still advocating for things that needed advocating. Um, and I just had a really bad experience at my first firm. I don't have an attorney personality, I don't think. It was kind of startling. Um, so after a while, I decided that I wasn't happy and I didn't want to waste any more time not being super true to myself. And I knew that I wanted to do something with animals and I wanted it to have some kind of hands-on aspect where I was around them, because that's really what just kind of like brings the light to my eyes. And so I went back to school again. I found a program through the University of Florida in animal shelter leadership. So I did that. I was getting rejected from a lot of animal jobs in the meantime. And I applied to this one thinking I would absolutely not get it or even get an interview. And I landed the job.
Interesting. Wow,
So it's
persistent.
it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah. So has anybody helped you, inspired you along the way, knowing, kind of helping you to know you're on the right path?
I think a lot of people have, every time that I got into whether it was a volunteer position, an internship, or a paid job that was some animal related in some capacity, I was always meeting people in those places that I just, you share a passion with them and you just connect with them in a different way. And I feel like that was just always kind of re-solidifying that that's where I needed to be. So whether it was like a vet clinic or a nonprofit that's doing legal advocacy for animals, I was just always kind of feeding off the energy of the people that I was interacting with. And it was very inspiring for me.
Nice. So has your perspective changed? I mean, you started out wanting to be a veterinarian, you ended up in animal welfare. I'm curious, has your perspective on animal welfare changed from when you started to where you are now?
I feel like I'm always learning new things every single day.
Sure.
Uh, for example, I just kind of picked up on the fact that there are people in our field that are pushing away from no kill and are starting to really just push no birth. So it's been really interesting to start learning about the complexities of both sides of those things. Uh, the longer I spend in shelters where I'm really getting to see all of it, all of the time, especially in my current job where our facility has been failing and there's so many challenges associated with that for the animals and the people. I don't know. I feel like I've grown mentally and emotionally just from all of this exposure, 40 years in the last 5. Um, and I think all in all, it's really just made me more compassionate and prioritizing like meeting people where they're at and just seeing everybody as equals to me, which I think has influenced my leadership style a lot, but I can talk about that more later.
Yeah. I want to touch on that. You talked about I've not heard the term no birth versus no kill. Maybe elaborate a little bit and explain even for me what's the difference?
So, no kill is focusing on stopping euthanasia of any kind of adoptable animal in a shelter. And from my understanding, the focus of that is managed intake, where you can limit the number of animals that are coming in. And some of that is through pet retention types of services and programs, like um, any kind of medical care assistance for pets that otherwise wouldn't be able to be afforded, or pet food assistance, just counseling pet owners who aren't understanding how they can fix challenges that they're seeing with their pet that don't necessarily warrant surrendering them. And sometimes it's just a lack of capacity. They have to turn people away because otherwise they'd overflow and have to euthanize. No birth is prioritizing spay neuter, I think. So
Okay.
you're just stopping the population from growing, and the more you invest in that, it kind of just along the timeline of kind of how, they're born, they go into a home, they're abandoned or surrendered or whatever. It just kind of eliminates how much of that you're seeing. So
Got it.
I just learned about this myself.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I've always been a fan of spay and neuter and TNR and all those things because obviously keeping from the multiplication of animals keeps them out of shelter. So I've never heard that phrase before. So that's an interesting turn of a phrase, and I mean maybe it'll stick and just get people thinking that this is another path to get us to where we're trying to be.
And I feel like I've gotten to see directly the benefits of spay neuter, where if I was in a different organization, I might not be as aware of it. Our clinic, since it opened in 2017, has done over 25,000 spay neuter surgeries.
Wow.
And we're in a county that's only about 100,000 people. And they haven't had an animal services program or a municipal shelter in about 10 years. So my shelter and one other contract with the law enforcement agencies to provide some kennels, but it's only, I think, 5 between both of our organizations. So there are stray animals everywhere. We get almost 50 calls a day about either strays or somebody wanting to surrender their pet. And so to have done over 25,000 surgeries in that time and almost feeling like it still hasn't made a dent in the amount of animals we're seeing is really scary. And it's scary to think what it could look like if our clinic wasn't, located in that area where there's already such a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. That is crazy. I mean, it's hard to know that you're making an impact, but 25,000 animals is a huge impact, right? Because when you start doing the multiplication, right, cats and dogs, and they continue to reproduce, that number would be much bigger if you guys weren't there. So it's a good thing that you're really focused on that.
Yeah, and it's the other reason that our new shelter is so important too.
Yeah. Yeah. And tell me about that because you talked about, I mean, obviously having to build a new shelter and all the decisions. I mean, tell me a little bit about what the new shelter is going to be all about.
Well, the first and most critical piece here is that if we didn't get this new shelter up soon, Homeward Bound, at least the shelter side of it, would have to just stop in its tracks. Again, it was founded in 1975, and the facility has been around pretty much that whole time. And it wasn't built then, it was already in use for many, many years before that. And it wasn't all meant to house animals. So after almost 50 years of crowding all of these very small kind of barn-like buildings with cats.
Yeah.
We do have an actual kennel building, but it was meant to be just kind of a temporary setting. It wasn't safe for humans or animals after a few decades. So
Yeah.
at this point, almost everything except the kennels have been demolished. The kennels are hanging on by a thread, and we just would literally have to stop operating. And it's interesting, with something like fostering, we had to stop completely our cat adoptions. And Homeward Bound is historically known for doing hundreds of cat adoptions a year. So when you look at our numbers now, you're seeing maybe 5 or 6 cats because that's really all we can accommodate in somebody's office, and then 60 or 70 dog adoptions. So it's really impacted the difference we're able to make in the community. But just aside from our own capacity and our own facility challenges, again, we haven't had any resources in this county dedicated to helping pets in almost a decade. So there are so many service gaps, and we're desperate to be able to fill them like we were at one point.
Yeah.
Uh, so we have a lot of eyes on us right now, and all the cities and the county officials really want to, team up and work with us. So it's going to be a complete game changer, and we're super excited about it.
That's really cool. When does the new shelter, when is the grand opening?
We aren't locking ourselves into a date yet because you never know what can happen with construction,
Sure.
but I would say we're about 3-ish months out.
Okay, so it's starting to get within that, 100-day window, right? It's right there in front of you. So that's really cool. That's got to be a lot of work and really exciting, but I mean, I'm excited to see when that launches, like you said, what the impact's going to be and how it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, it's so exciting, and it's such a cool thing to be able to do every day. I had no idea that I was just gonna kind of like slide into my dream job and then get to do the coolest project that I could imagine. But it also feels like a lot of pressure because it's so desperately needed. It's really important that we do it right from the start. So we're we're anxious, but in a really, really good way.
Nice. Casey, talk to me about the community. I mean, I'm curious what the community's like for animals. Obviously, you talked about a lot of the strays and that, but what is the general feeling of the community?
So Yamhill County is known as Oregon's wine country. It's rural. Some of the cities don't have really good infrastructure, and McMinnville, where Homeward Bound is located, is the biggest city in the county. So it's kind of a big melting pot. You're getting all different kinds of things, all different types of people. There's only, one high school for the whole county, so it's really tight knit. Dog control, which is really what they focus on, because that's kind of the biggest thing. So when you're hearing about like the lack of animal services, they're calling it dog control. It's become a really controversial issue, actually, which I have found to be really interesting. I wasn't expecting it to be that way. For example, in I think March of last year, a local pet owner who breeds wolf dogs, a few of them escaped from her property, and they ran around in the night and killed a bunch of pets. And
Mm.
it became something where the whole community was showing up to the city council meetings to give statements and push for stronger dog control, change the local laws, get some kind of infrastructure in place. So it's been really interesting. People really, really care about it. There's a lot of like political differences and a lot of older people, a lot of really wealthy people in some areas and stuff, but everybody can kind of agree on this one thing. And so I've really, really enjoyed getting to know the community because everybody's just really embraced me as the new executive director, but they also, for so long, many people there have supported Homeward Bound for, before I was even alive.
Wow. Now, I saw from your website, you guys obviously have a foster program. Do you have difficulties getting people to foster? I mean, it sounds like the communities really they love animals.
It is a little bit difficult. With the dogs, the challenge is that we only have 14 kennels, and we've had these kenneling contracts for dog control for a few years now, and we prioritize if someone doesn't get redeemed, we transfer them into one of our kennels. So with just the overflow of stray dogs that you're seeing in the community, we haven't been able to take in an owner surrender for a few years.
Hmm.
So the dogs that are coming in, we're having to work with them a lot longer before they would be appropriate to place in a foster home. And that's not the case for all of them. But it has overwhelmed us to where we we can't just like get a dog in, send a dog out to foster. With cats, and this was a decision made before I was here, when the cat houses came down, cat intake and adoption just stopped, which
Oh,
I see that as an opportunity to really build a strong foster program. And then they could have just continued that same, flow of cats into Homeward Bound and back out to adopters. But that's not what happened. And the saddest part is that we ended up losing a lot of volunteers because most of the volunteers are coming to take care of the cats.
yeah.
So we lost fosters and just all kinds of volunteers who are coming and interacting with our organization on a regular basis.
So hopefully you can rebuild those relationships when you launch the new facility, right? And get some of these programs back going again.
Yes, I think it is the perfect way to facilitate that happening. I think the whole community is going to want to come see the shelter and see the cats that we haven't had for so long and, our expanded capacity for dogs. And so we'll have them in there and it'll be really easy, I think, to get them to, develop a really deep and kind of ongoing relationship with us. And hopefully that means fostering because, it's good for the shelter, it's good for the animals, and it's good for the community too.
Casey, I know you've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of animals coming through the facility. I mean, what's the one thing that still inspires you about the bond between people and animals?
I think one thing that's been particularly inspiring to me has been watching the bond between my animal care staff and the animals. They are working in horrible conditions and they have been for a while. I mean, so much so that our facility wasn't safe and had to be mostly demolished. The kennels are not great. They're constantly having to repair them. They are using a porta potty as their, restroom facility. It's something that I think, especially in a field that already is just kind of prone to burning people out,
Yeah.
it's amazing to me that they have stayed. Like this core team of people has been here this whole time. They love the animals, the dogs, that's kind of who they're working with now, but they're so dedicated to making sure that they're comfortable and as happy as they can be in that facility, that they're getting them adopted out as quickly as they can. It's amazing. I talked a little while ago about just how sharing passion with people
Mm.
is very inspiring to me. And with this specific group, I think that's the most inspired I've ever felt from, somebody who also loves animals.
Yeah, I was going to say this field is hard enough, right? That we talk about compassion fatigue and just the things that, you have to do and see. I mean, how as a leader, how do you inspire them? How do you keep them motivated to keep trying in these kind of conditions?
At first, it was gaining their trust, so I made sure to invest a lot of time one-on-one with my managers just to understand the history and kind of how they're feeling and how they're doing. The hope was low at that point. The capital campaign had been going on for a really long time, and I think everybody was starting to wonder when the shelter was actually going to become a reality. Um, so once I kind of figured out who they all were, what they thought about Homeward Bound, we know what they wanted to see in the future, it really just became a complete weight on my shoulders of I have to deliver now. I have to take all the things they're saying they need. I need to take this shelter building project and this capital campaign and push it through and kind of get Homeward Bound onto the next chapter. Because the other, kind of weight from the capital campaign and shelter building project that Homeward Bound has felt is that with such a small team of about 20 people, it's been all hands on deck on those two things for so long that it's sucked resources and investing time in, the spay neuter clinic or the thrift shop or just engaging with the community. So it's just, I've been trying to inspire people by giving them what it is that they've really, really needed for a long time. Um, I'm also, because I was doing domestic violence law, I've done a lot of trauma informed practice trainings, and I really try to implement that in. I think it helps to just make people connect with me and feel like I care, and I'm not just a leader as in a boss. I'm a leader as in I want to invest in them and help them and lead them to be better too.
Nice. If you could go back in time and give advice to your younger self, what would you give?
Oh, there's so many things that I would tell my younger self if I could. I think the biggest one is to just believe in myself and, trust the process and not let myself get sucked down by imposter syndrome because, I think to an extent, everybody is kind of, faking it till they make it.
Right.
We're all facing new situations all the time, but especially in landing in a job like this where my passion is I'm getting to utilize it every single day. A lot of the decisions and things that I'm facing, ultimately, like my gut reaction, the first moment that I'm faced with it ends up being the right thing to do. It's not always. And sometimes I have to invest more time in figuring out how to, get from point A to point B. But my passion and my authenticity have carried me through so far. And I, you know, I think that when I was practicing law, I still was doing good work. I was succeeding, I guess, but I just wasn't happy. So I think just, trust yourself, whether that's a decision you're making or whether, you think you need to do a career that's going to make you money or keep you having like whatever version of life you think that you need to have to be happy versus going after something that would, just not feel like work every day. Because I think that's really important when most of our life is dedicated to a job of some kind.
Exactly. Passion. I love that. So Casey, we're gonna come to the fun part now. We're gonna do some lightning round questions, right? So these are just first thing that comes to mind. Don't overthink it. So, puppy breath or kitten purrs? Which one?
Puppy.
Puppy. Got it.
Yep.
Do you have a go-to song when you're trying to get pumped up?
It's interesting. I'm kind of a weird person in that way. If I'm getting pumped up, I need silence.
Okay.
I got to get in
That's
the
fair.
zone, And so
Yeah.
by listening to music, sometimes my brain is doing so much that I don't even hear it.
Nice. Nice. What is the most underrated part of an animal's personality that only comes out in a home environment?
I think just like when they let their guard down and they really just kind of like cuddle you. Some dogs and cats and other pets don't really do that. But when they just come to you for just genuine affection,
Yeah.
it is just so endearing. And, you don't get to see that a lot in some animals unless you have them at home and you've invested the time in building a relationship with them.
Yeah. If you had to describe the future of this community's relationships with animals in just one word, what would it be?
Thriving.
I like it. I like it. And then last, complete the sentence. Fostering doesn't just save a life, it.
Expands our capacity, it engages the community, and it lets animals just, really flourish before they're even in the place where they get to, have their permanent home and really, really flourish.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, Casey, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and the impact that you guys are having. Is there anything else you wanted to tell people before we wrap things up today?
My staff would be disappointed if I didn't say visit our website and check out our very cool capital campaign that is very exciting for our community and hopefully going to make a huge difference. We're not a big organization, but my goal is to be a role model for other smaller organizations that are in similar communities.
That's awesome. And we'll definitely do that, Casey. We'll make sure to put the website in there and make it easy for people to give. And just as we wrap up, I just want to remind people, as you're Casey say, fostering saves lives, it enriches, it does so much. It brings so much to your life that you never can imagine. So definitely, if you're listening to this, watching this, go be a foster. We will help you. Check out Doobert, right? We're all about supporting fosters and making sure you've got all the resources you need, and we're always here for you. So thank you again, Casey, for coming on the show today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.